morning to those of you guys who are joining. We're just waiting a few minutes for, since we don't normally live stream, give people a little bit of time to catch up. But there is significant breaking news from Trump this morning that he's claiming there's an assassin, Charlie Kirk's assassin, in custody. So we'll show you all the videos and get to all of that. I just want to give people a few minutes to get in.
That's right.
And how am I coming in? You guys hearing me?
We hear you fine, Ryan.
All right.
We also hear the cat fine.
Got the whole team.
Whoever's cat that is. It could be anybody's cat.
Could be anybody's cat.
Not mine. We actually installed a door in this room so that I'm not constantly bombarded by animals when we're trying to do things. So
smart. Except the cat will jump over it in a second.
People did appreciate the Salem appearances.
Okay, cool. All right. Go ahead, Krystal.
All right, guys. So breaking news this morning, President Trump had a Fox and Friends appearance where he said that roughly 5 minutes before he sat down on their couch, he had received word that they had a suspect in custody that they have a high degree of confidence about. So let me go ahead and pull this up. Let me make sure my DMs are down here. Okay, here we go. And you can hear exactly what he says. And then he gives later on in the interview, and we'll play this for you as well. He gives some details about exactly how the suspect was located. So all very interesting. Okay, here we go. Oh, it's just taking a moment to load for some reason, which we love.
I can also try. Let's see.
You want to try, Saagar? Mine is hanging up.
Attempt it.
Also, and if he leaked it without them being aware, it is still their fault for giving him. You don't give him something right before he goes on Fox and Friends if you don't want it out.
I actually cannot share my screen, so if anybody else could do it, that would be great. Yeah, so we're already off to a good start.
Let me try again here. And if we can't play it, I can just read you a little bit of what he had to say. But yeah, I don't know why it's hanging up for me.
Producers, can one of you do it? Mac, Griffin, if you're on.
Yeah, weirdly, I can't share my screen either.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
It looks like I can. Just give me 1 second.
All right.
While Emily's pulling that up, basically he says that they just gave him word that the suspect is in custody. They have a high degree of confidence. And here we go. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Supposed to be with you. He went out to be with Charlie Kirk's family and to get the body back to his hometown in Arizona. And you said you were going to award him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is very nice of you. Any updates on the suspect?
Yeah. Can I always say, I think, just to protect us all, and so Fox doesn't get sued and we all don't get sued and everything else. But I think with a high degree of certainty, we have him. In custody, right? In custody. Everyone did a great job. We worked with the local police, the governor. Everybody did a great job. You know, getting somebody that you start off with absolutely nothing. And we started off with a clip that made him look like an ant that was almost useless. We just saw there was somebody up there. And so much work has been done over the last 2.5 days. You know, it's amazing, actually, when you start off with that and then all of a sudden you get lucky or talent or whatever it is. But yeah, I think we're in great shape.
So that last part, lucky or talent, is proving to be critical already, because this is more than 24 hours into the investigation, of course. And now we are learning, per NBC News, quote, a person suspected of shooting Charlie Kirk has been taken into custody after a family member saw the photos and confronted the first, according to 2 senior law enforcement officials briefed on the matter. And Saagar, you brought us the breaking news from Jackie Heinrich of Fox, who has more to share, which is that the suspect was walked in St. George, Utah, last night after around 11 p.m. And so
that would be 11 p.m. Utah time. Yeah. So Just to give everybody some context, what's very important to understand, St. George, Utah, I checked, is about 250 miles from Salt Lake City and the Provo, Utah area. It's in a totally different part of the state. I was telling the team, I've actually been to St. George, Utah. It's very near to Zion National Park, so I went through whenever I visited. By the way, everyone should visit if they have the time. But it does tell us is that the suspect was able to not only jump off the roof, presumably then walk from the roof to this neighborhood to a car. So remember, this was a sophisticated plan on his part. He parked his car in the neighborhood. He knew that he was going to flee through that neighborhood, and so that he didn't park his car where it could be intercepted. Came through, as TMZ video shows, through the neighborhood, presumably with a rifle in his pants because he was showing a limp. Went on the roof. He actually had the rifle down his pant leg in some photos that were released by FBI Salt Lake City's Utah office. What he then, obviously conducted the assassination of Charlie Kirk, puts the rifle presumably back down his pants, or perhaps he disassembles it. We're still not entirely sure of that. Jumps off the roof, flees through the neighborhood, and at this point is somehow able to either get into a vehicle and go all the way back to St. George, Utah. The initial indication that we see, or at least in the vicinity, that's the the office that he was walked into, but it does look like the FBI really, What's extraordinary about this investigation, guys, is how much are we told by law enforcement? We have all the security photos. We have all of this. At the end of the day, we had to rely on one of his family members recognizing him, right. And presumably also in this report from Jackie Heinrich, he confessed to his father, right? Confessed to his father, presumably also after being confronted by some people who recognized him. So the only real lead that they had was the video and releasing it to the public. That is, of course, how Luigi Mangione was also identified, or at least that's the official story, in the McDonald's, while eating in McDonald's.
In Pennsylvania.
But it does go to show how, right, in Pennsylvania, and he was also, some couple states away, a couple hours away as well. But it does tell us that even with the shoe print, with all of that the only way that they were able to get him was with help from the public. So that is pretty extraordinary that he got away hundreds of miles from the site of this shooting. And that, as of last night, Utah Public Safety was saying we have no idea where he is. We have no idea who he is. So it is good news, of course, that he's been taken into custody. And we're going to be learning a lot about this guy as some of the details start to roll in.
Able to turn him in.
I was just looking up, and you could tell me if this was your impression.
Shooter to turn them in.
Well, it was a minister, and the minister went to a minister who was involved with law enforcement.
Go ahead, Ryan. I can hear you fine.
As I was just looking up the population.
Oh, I'm not hearing anything.
I can hear it.
Oh, okay.
Ryan, I think Ryan and Saagar aren't hearing it. Emily, are you hearing it?
Yeah, I hear it.
Let's go ahead and play on the video element, because this is where Trump further describes how this individual was located. And he talks about how a minister, I think, approached his dad, and then the suspect confesses to the dad. The dad brings him in. Go ahead and play it, Em.
Clarification. So a pastor was able to turn him in, or they got the family of the shooter to turn them in?
Well, it was a minister, and the minister went to a minister who was involved with law enforcement, by the way. And his good friend is a top U.S. Marshal. And they took it from there. And then it was a father got involved, namely his father, and said, we got to go in. And they, so I understand it. And again, subject to change. But, the facts are the facts. We have the person that we think is the person we're looking for. But they drove into the police headquarters, and he's there now.
Did the father know about what the son had done?
I don't know. I'm going to let you get all those questions later, because I can't tell you how accurate. The bottom line is they have somebody that they think did it.
So, Mr. President.
Okay, so there you go. So saying, minister approaches the father. He says a father, his father in particular, and then the reporting is that the dad actually, the son confesses to the dad, and then actually walks in and turns himself in. And a few things that are It is worth saying we've had a few false alarms already in this case, so let's just put this out there, though this seems much more definitive than what we were getting from Kash Patel earlier when he was just like tweeting out of turn. In addition, it is also worth noting, as Saagar was, that as of last night, we all watched that press conference, and they were saying, we literally have no idea where he is. They released a video. You couldn't tell much distinguishing features, but of him, on the roof and jumping down off the roof and fleeing the scene. And the fact that he was able to get so far away and they had no clue where this guy was, if he had decided rather than, I guess, going home to flee the country or go somewhere else, very difficult to imagine, that maybe eventually they would have gotten him, but they certainly got lucky that this is the chain of events that transpired to be able to locate him.
Well, so we're just getting from the New York Post. Emily, could you put that up there for the elements? We just got this New York Post exclusive. Again, this is from the New York Post. They say Tyler Robinson, 22-year-old from Utah, ID'd as Charlie Kirk shooting suspect after father turned him in. So we do have a name here. They're saying it's a 22-year-old Utah local, Tyler Robinson, and that matches with some of the photos. We're sourcing this to the New York Post. There's been other stuff reported there on social media, but it was after Trump broke the news this morning that, the name and the circumstances and all of that are beginning to filter out. I don't see yet anything in particular about a motivation or social media profile, etc. But that's what we do know, and of course, that's all of that is going to start to filter in. That's right.
And I do just want to pause on something that is interesting as we're talking for a moment, because I'm going to share this clip from last night as Donald Trump was leaving Washington for New York around. So I think this must have been around 5 p.m. Is the audio coming through? It looks like maybe.
I hear.
It's pretty low, but we hear it.
So basically what the president said back at the White House last night before leaving is that he had an indication of motive. But the suspect that is now in custody did not, according to the breaking reports that are coming out, was walked in after 11 p.m. Utah time. When their father turned them in. But Trump yesterday was saying in the evening that he believed that they had a suspect and an idea of motive and that there was a manhunt underway. So that's already a bit strange to me.
Yeah, I mean, this gets to a much, which I think we were all probably going to have about law enforcement. Also, can somebody take that? Yeah, there we go. Where a lot of the initial information just was not accurate and had to immediately be cleaned up. And so yesterday, when we were broadcasting, if you'll remember, Krystal, I was like, I'm seeing some info, but I'm not going to share it because it was from just Steven Crowder, and I was waiting for somebody else to report it. And they had put out an ATF internal report which described quote, transgender and anti-fascist markings on the bullets. Now, remember, markings on bullets is not inconsistent with mass shooting and assassins that we've seen, just like Luigi Mangione, allegedly, as well as, we had the more recent shooting, putting markings on the gun. These are all internet kind of hallmarks of some of these inspired people. But it then later came out in the evening that actually the investigators were very unclear whether those quote markings had anything to do with quote transgender or anti-fascist ideology. So that is a pretty extraordinary thing that it came out and then effectively, I wouldn't say it was retracted yet, but they were like, look, we don't know, it's still going through some initial indication. And I think that is more of a bigger picture kind of problems in totality with the law enforcement investigation. I mean, again, it looks very clear. If this guy had not turned himself in or, turned in to his father, confronted and appeared, etc., this could have gone on for quite a long time. They really did not know. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, no, that's how you solve these cases, though. Like as soon as his picture was out there,
yeah,
like somebody's gonna be like, oh my God, that's Tyler. And
right.
in this, like exactly how the Unabomber was caught, except it wasn't his picture; it was the style of his writing.
From the writings, yeah.
And his brother was like, "Oh my God, that's my brother!" And boom, like immediately, they know who it is. So, talk a little bit about what we know about St. George. Looked it up; it's about 2/3 population LDS. And I'm Googling now that very unfortunately for a lot of people, there are a decent number of Tyler Robinsons who live in Utah.
Oh no.
I mean,
So-
it's a pretty common
Yeah.
name in general. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
already seeing on social media people grabbing the wrong freaking Tyler Robinson.
Right.
Not to mention, 4chan thought they'd located the shooter,
some trans-
random
yeah.
trans person, and of course they're fucking. I mean, assuming that this is the guy, et cetera, et cetera. But I saw all kinds of theories about who the shooter was, including one of them reached out to Emily and I and said, "Listen, I'm a fan of your show. They're like sharing this picture of me. I have nothing to do with this. So guys,
my God.
don't ruin random people's lives."
Yeah, I
when
just
you
saw
know
that email this
absolutely
morning.
Nothing, please
I just
stop
saw that
doing
email
that.
this morning. It's really sad. She was a huge fan of our show, and Emily, you responded to it. That's how I saw the email through our filters, where somebody sent us this email about. I'm not even gonna say their name; they don't deserve it, right? To be publicly out there. Basically, the text of the email was like, "I have no desire to be included in this at all. Like, please tell people that I'm not part of it." But this person was identified allegedly as like one of the shooters, and she's like, "I had nothing to do with this, literally." So shout out to her. Thank you for being a fan of
Let's
the
give
show.
her a free premium sub for her troubles.
Absolutely, we will.
There you go.
We'll send it to her. Yeah.
But in any
it
case-
does show like the internet investigate this. I was thinking about this earlier. It's like we have learned nothing with NERMs of the internet. Ryan, Krystal, I'm sure Emily, we were all there for Boston Bomber. I mean, do you remember that? They
Oh, yeah.
drove
Yeah.
that poor kid. Didn't he commit suicide? Am I crazy? In my remember of that,
And he
Go
sued
ahead.
he sued the New York Post, right?
Yes, like
Because they put him on the front page. They put him
him
on
on
the
the
Oh my
front
God.
page. By the way, Andrew Kaczynski, who works at CNN now, was involved in that, if I recall. Back in this was 2014, early internet, early Reddit detective, and that stuff. And it was a major. I remember thinking at that time, this should never happen again. And it just it happens over and over
Every
and over
time.
again. And people,
So-
just put doxing and public information. It's just really irresponsible.
So instead of recklessly speculating about names, I think we can at least speculate about the political implications of the ideology that comes through. I know as I'm sitting here, just as both a human being in this country, but also as a person on the left here in this country, I know I'm sitting here and trying to pray that this is like some white nationalist or something. Emily, I don't have much of a connection with the Lord since I'm not a believer. So if you could
You do.
If you could send that to him for me, be like, please make this a groiper.
Cosign.
So it's just like when throughout the last 20 years,
Yes, killing me.
whenever there would be a mass shooting, you would have like the entire Muslim community pulling together, just praying, like, please make this another white boy, because the second that it's a Muslim carrying
it's
out the
Muhammad.
shooting, then it's like a massive manhunt, and it's like another 9/11. But if it's a white kid who's like mentally ill, then people are like, well, that's a shame. Ah, well, nevertheless, and then just kind of move on. So right now, we don't know much, but we know the population of the city where he comes from, which is, there's some clues, but you could, a 20-year-old kid can go a 22-year-old kid can go different directions. You can have conservative parents and become a left-wing kid.
Look, we have no idea.
Go the other
right?
direction, so it's like
that's the thing. We really
we
have
should
no
know
idea.
within like a half an hour.
We'll probably know soon. It's certainly
I'm sure
possible.
that social media postings are being
Yeah.
surficed as we speak.
Like,
but
if it's
photos,
another one
but-
like Butler, where the kid has zero trace on in the entire world, then that'd be too much, because like there can't
Which
be
was
two people in
bizarre.
the world.
Right. I
with
mean,
no-
still
Totally
with no
bizarre.
trace.
with Matthew, I do think that's actually worth noting, and that's something that it's like we still don't know really anything about Crooks. What's his name? Thomas
Right.
Crooks.
Thomas
I
Crooks,
believe.
and
I mean,
so everybody was like, well, oh well.
he was like shot in the head, while taking and then blackout, like FBI, no information. Actually, Emily, we've talked about Vegas. Remember the last time we were together, we were talking about Las Vegas.
Yep.
Same thing, where they're like, yeah, he was just crazy. I'm like, really? That's it?
Well,
That's the
I mean,
only reason?
but I mean,
Yeah.
listen, it's this FBI, Cash Patel and co. who was like, case closed. There's nothing really to see here on that. I know Epstein got all the attention, but on the on Crooks as well. And it is worth noting, I mean, the Ryan Ruth guy, who was the other attempted Trump assassin.
Yep.
Also, I mean, his political ideology be very hard to pinpoint. He was very interested in Ukraine, apparently, but he's kind of all over the place. A lot of these shooters, the ideological leanings are oftentimes kind of weird and unclear. You know, they're almost. I mean, the last shooter, the Minnesota shooter, who who is transgender, those ideological leanings were also, there was like signs of the occult, there was neo-Nazism, there was also fuck Donald Trump, there was like all kinds of, a whole mishmash of political leanings. And the other thing they said about Thomas Crooks was that Trump was like an object of convenience. He happened to be coming nearby. He'd also looked into, hey, maybe I could shoot Joe Biden if I have the opportunity. So, I know we assume, as we're learning this person's name and people are digging into their socials, we assume we're going to get a clear picture, and we may, but it also may be some wild mishmash that's sort of indecipherable.
And what's interesting again about this particular, so all of those other, there is that interesting pattern that Krystal just described, and then also, as we've covered, I don't want to say unique, that's not the right word, but this shooting where you have we're talking about a 22-year-old who is apparently a very good shot, if that's exactly what he was aiming for. Tragically, very good shot, and single shot, executes a plan that evades the FBI for 36 hours by going onto a roof. I mean, we're looking at a very high level of strategy in order to execute a plan like this. And remember, also, single shot, shooter did not take himself out, or suspected shooter did not take himself out, which is what we see so often. That's what just happened in Minnesota, that somebody sees the pattern since Columbine of people using these orchestrated awful shootings as basically a grand suicide. That isn't what happened here. And so I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like maybe we come to find out there's more going on, but it does always fit the profile when you have a young male. It does that starts to fit a profile of the school shooter, but this was just one shot. So I don't know. I mean, it's all very strange.
And a young, apparently white male, which also fits the school shooter profile. Even if we think about Luigi, and I think an idea in our mind has kind of crystallized that he is on the left, but actually, when we went back and looked at like the books he was recommending and the podcast he was listening to, it was like sort of Rogan-esque, it wasn't like he was, a hardcore DSA dude. So oftentimes, and the other thing to mention about Luigi is when people saw the way he was able to, in cold blood on the street, murder this man and then get away, everyone also went to, oh my God, this looked like a professional hit. And, and I seeing what the public assassination here, Charlie Kirk, and the positioning and, the challenge of taking that shot. I know it's not that difficult, but with all the high stakes and the pressure and a single bullet and whatever, and it's a human being and overcoming, our natural, hopefully, revulsion at doing such a thing, and then being able to escape and completely evade capture, people also said, including experts say, hey, this looks like a professional job, but that may not be the case at all. I mean, it may just be the case that he did some basic planning. There are reports now, this is relevant, that a student, and again gets to law enforcement, a student and a professor both had seen this guy on the roof multiple times before the event and called in a tip to the FBI. What the hell? And so, that's the reporting. That's the reporting at least. But in any case, I mean, it may just be the case that he's a 22-year-old who grew up hunting and knows his way, around a firearm, and put in some thought and some planning, asked ChatGPT the best way to, assassinate a public figure, and fed in the map of the thing. I mean, I'm not even really kidding. And is able to pull this off and evade capture, at least for that length of time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the initial signs were, potentially it's a professional. One of the things I kept hearing from firearms people is they're like, look, just basic, familiarity, people on the range in the military, etc. I think what made people think it might be professional was not just like the shot, but it was like the totality of like getting away.
Yeah.
Right.
I will say that the image,
Strategic positioning.
right, the
Yeah.
strategic positioning, the forethought that kind of went into it. Presumably, by the way, like if he had his cell phone, he probably would have been caught much earlier because they can put like a net around the area and they can ping the cell towers and all of that. But so I have no idea. Maybe you've done just a lot of research. For me, watching the video of him jumping off the roof, that was where I was like, okay, this is amateur, right? Because it was very clear. Like apparently there was a lot of other stuff. You could have easily have broken your leg, you know,
In
you
front
could
of
have
a
parked your
parking
car-
lot.
right?
There
in
could have
front of
been
a
any
parking
people.
lot.
It's
And
Utah.
that's-
There could have been another guy with a gun in a car
Totally,
who just
totally. That's
mows you
what I
down.
was thinking.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I was watching the video of him jumping off the roof. That's when I was like, okay, this looks actually a lot more amateur. And of course, we didn't have all that information. We really didn't know. But yeah, that's. Go ahead.
With the news that a couple people spotted him on the roof, and with the understanding that this is now the world that we live in, I feel like events have to have some type of mechanism set up
Yeah.
where somebody can see somebody on a rooftop, and within seconds, word gets to the people on the stage. Like that, you shouldn't have to call. Like you can't have to call the FBI. Like there's just no time for you to call the FBI. Like so maybe if that's one thing that comes out of it, it should be that. But and the other thing is for us to understand, yeah, and this is one of the few things I got right out of the gate, which is that 150, 200 yards with the scopes today, and the number of people we have that go through the military and law enforcement and hunting, which all three of those things are big in Utah. We have several million people in this country that can make that shot.
Yeah. That's
True.
Right. I unfortunately have to jump off, guys. To take my daughter
Thanks for
to the
joining us for a little
doctor.
bit.
Yeah, thank you all. So I guess we'll learn a lot more information very, very soon. From
And while
who
you
this
jump
person is.
jump off, I'm also going to disconnect and rejoin to see if it
Okay.
improves my situation.
All right, thank you all
Okay.
very much, and
Thanks,
we'll
Saagar.
see you guys on Monday.
Okay. All right. Sounds good, Saagar. And Emily, I'm going to, I was just taking a look. There's another clip that came out from Trump at Fox News where he gets asked a question about, hey, I think Ainsley asked him effectively, hey, there are radicals on the right too. Like, what are we going to do to fix this country? And he makes this comment. He says, well, this is going to get me in trouble. But the truth is the radicals on the right are angry just because they want to fix this country. They want to stop people coming in. They want to stop lawlessness and crime in the streets. It's the radicals on the left that are the problem. So once again, taking the opportunity to, make a partisan point to demonize his political adversaries, even as, maybe he knows more about this subject than we do, and what his political inclinations are. But before we even had a name, before they had anyone in custody, back when they had literally no idea who or where this person was, he made a point of making a speech to pour gasoline on the fire and use it as an excuse to go after his political enemies. And, I think that's where there's also a concern about what he's going to do going forward. Right. I was just saying that there's a clip of Trump basically getting asked, hey, what about the radicals on the right as well? And he says, well, they're not the problem. Only the radicals on the left are the real issue.
Well, and I will say I'm definitely concerned about civil liberty questions. Clay Higgins from Louisiana yesterday posted actually something I think Charlie Kirk would be deeply opposed to, which was this idea that you need to scour social media for anybody who is celebrating Charlie Kirk and it's Charlie Kirk's assassination, and then he wants the government
while you're talking.
Yeah,
about
he
it.
wants the government to work with big tech in order to make sure those people are banned.
I've got it.
So
I've got it. I can read it. He says,
Right.
I'm going to use congressional authority and every influence with big tech platforms to mandate immediate ban for life of every post or commenter that belittled the assassination of Charlie Kirk if they ran their mouth with their smart-ass hatred celebrating the heinous murder of that beautiful young man who dedicated his whole life to delivering respectful conservative truth into the hearts of liberal enclave universities, armed only with a Bible and a microphone and a constitution. These profiles must come down. So I'm going to lean forward in this fight, demanding big tech have zero tolerance for violent political hate content, the user to be banned from all platforms forever, in all caps. I'm also going after their business licenses and permitting Their businesses will be blacklisted aggressively. They should be kicked from every school, and their driver's licenses should be revoked. I'm basically going to cancel, with extreme prejudice, these evil, sick animals who celebrated Charlie Kirk's assassination. I'm starting that today. That is all.
So one of the, I think, scary parts of this whole situation is from Donald Trump down to, a rank and file member of the House of Representatives like Clay Higgins knew Charlie Kirk, and in many cases, like, really loved him, cared about him. And so the raw emotion it comes across in that tweet for sure, but that is now going to, this is not just like another, it could have been many different people, but the fact that it was Charlie Kirk, someone who was just truly beloved. I was at the White House yesterday for pool duty, and you could have cut the tension with a knife. The looks on when we were at the 9/11 memorial over at the Pentagon, I caught a video of the cabinet members coming into the wreath laying, and their faces were just sunken, like completely bereft. They like really were close to him, and that is obviously understandable. And then, of course, we know, just as human beings, that we don't often make our best decisions when we are governed by our passions. And if anything like what Clay Higgins just suggested, and again, he's a fairly random member of the House, but if anything like that catches on, it's horrifying. Of course, it's horrifying.
And we know, Ryan, that the president used the mugging of big balls to justify, National Guard call up and take over of Washington, D.C. So we know what he said in the Oval Office the other night in his speech, even as we had no idea who the suspect was. We had no idea their ideological leanings. We still don't at this point. At least the public doesn't. Perhaps he does at this point. But his whole MO is to use either real or manufactured crisis in order to consolidate power and crack down on his enemies. There is zero reason why, and we already see with the rhetoric, every inclination in the direction of going further to crush dissent, to weaponize this moment in order to further to demonize anyone that he considers to be effectively a political adversary.
Yeah, and I found the Trump clip, and I think this is important for people to hear it from him directly in his own words. Hold on. Let me make sure my DMs are down.
Of all of us, Ryan definitely needs his DMs down.
For the sake of national security.
They were up. Now they're not.
For the sake of Ryan Grimm's security, we need Ryan's DMs down.
So here he is getting asked about the radical right.
Radicals on the right as well. We have radicals on the left. People are watching all of these videos and cheering. Some people are cheering that Charlie was killed. How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem. And they're vicious and they're horrible and they're politically savvy. Although they want men and women sports, they want transgender for everyone. They want open borders. The worst thing that happened.
Radicals.
So go ahead, Ryan.
No, I'm just saying, I can't imagine a worse president to have at a moment like this if you're trying to pull people together.
Turn down the temperature.
Who knows what he got briefed on when it comes to this guy's ideology right before he came on here. But for him to say, you know what, it actually doesn't matter basically it doesn't matter who did the violence. I'm going to smash the people on the left, because the people on the right, when they get violent, their violence is justified because they're upset about the border, they're upset about crime, they have legitimate grievances, so they should be violent. But the people on the left, he's going to sweep them up. I hope this does get him in trouble. I don't know if it will. It feels like we're almost in a post-Trump gets in trouble period. But his initial instinct there, that's saying that cuts against the fiber of what we believe in, and that violence from one side is okay and justified because they have righteous vengeance, and violence from the other side is the only thing that matters. And to say I don't care is psychotic.
Well, and I've got another one. I haven't listened to this one yet, but I'm looking at the Aaron Rupar summary of it. Let me go ahead and see if I can share this one, and we can
Always
react
dangerous.
to it.
So
DMs, you're fine.
people that are going to go, I want revenge, not to have revenge. Charlie Kirk would not want revenge.
You want revenge at the voter
That's
box.
that's where to go.
But unfortunately, we don't have so many ballot boxes because they have mail-in voting, which is totally rigged. You know, there are a lot of problems. I like ballot
That's
boxes.
a really
They
dangerous.
do mail-in voting all over the place, which is rigged. Anytime
So he
That's-
says, yeah,
Yeah.
let's have revenge of the ballot. Oh, but we don't really have ballot boxes. It's all
So we've got to
rigged.
get it somewhere
so
else. Yeah.
What are you
That's-
going to
that's
do?
it.
We're going to have to get our revenge somewhere else.
If he says that again, I mean, he already said it, but that's extremely dangerous. And whether or not he'd said it, now that I'm thinking about it, I hadn't seen that, but that's extremely dangerous because it's this combination of telling people their votes don't count and that's where you start to creep into historical parallels
Right.
with like very obvious historical parallels that are horrifying. But when people feel like they've lost control and agency and power, that's a very ripe culture and for the worst, basically, to materialize. And so again, we were just talking about this, but I hope that when passions calm, something different emerges. I'm not saying it's going to be something perfect, of course, but something different, something that's not this emerges. But that cat is now out of the bag. The president of the United States said it. It already would have been. I mean, January 6th was an example of people feeling completely hopeless, like they have lost control. And we know what happens when people feel like they've lost control with the peaceful mechanism of democracy, which is the vote and which is speech.
I mean, that's what we're living through.
Yeah.
That's what we're living through. We're already living in that reality. And of course it can get worse, right? I mean, but when you see, like I was saying yesterday, I can't even hold in my head anymore because there's been so many, the number of attempted political assassinations over just the past few years, you know, and you're exactly right, Emily. I mean, think of our country. It is a powder keg. We are, you know, chocked to the gills, like with guns, right? Just a flood of guns in the country, mass untreated mental illness. People can't even go to a doctor. There's wildly insufficient rehab, wildly insufficient mental health facilities, crushing inequality, economic stress, a culture of political nihilism where it feels increasingly like I vote this way, I vote that way. It doesn't matter, who cares, or the whole thing's rigged or whatever. And you can't have a democracy if that is the sense. If the sense is my own is increasingly among some even small subset of people, my recourse is violence. That's my only recourse. Like this whole project, it doesn't work. This whole project does not work if that's the sense. And then when you have, Ryan said it best, like this is literally the worst person you could possibly have to be president of the United States at a moment like this, when what you need is to bring people together, what you need is to turn down the temperature. And instead, his every instinct is to be an arsonist, pour gasoline on the fire, to blame, to use it and weaponize it to further his own control and his own aims. And it's deeply disturbing. I mean, we are in a scary place. I think everybody has that sense.
And the new detail that we're getting about his father, according to the Daily Mail, which is getting sources told the Daily Mail that the father is a 27-year veteran of the Washington County Sheriff's Department. He did not bring him into the station, it appears. The son confessed, and then he, quote unquote, secured his son at the home.
Okay, so he was walked in the sense that it wasn't a struggle.
Police came to the house,
right,
and then would have walked him in. $600,000, 6-bedroom home in Washington, Utah, 260 miles south. And according to the Daily Mail, he was a student at Utah State University on scholarship there.
But not Utah Valley University.
Right. Utah State University.
So I'm We have one of the pictures of Tyler Robinson has been confirmed by at least some news outlets. So I'll go ahead and put this up on the screen. And I mean, it looks very much like the pictures they released, and even the shoes he's wearing are the same shoes that were pictured in the photos that were released by the FBI. So this allegedly is him. And again, it looks very much, this is Tyler Robinson. It looks very much like the guy in the pictures. And this is Rolling Stone had put this photo out, and many people were sharing it online. So it looks to be that this is an accurate picture. People are starting to surface a bunch of like family Facebook posts and things of that nature that, show them like eating pancakes and going to Halloween and doing normal family stuff. So that's as much as we know at this point.
Right. And statistically, I just want to say statistically, when you have a white male from a relatively red state, we don't know, but who is familiar with a gun, there is a non-zero possibility. Actually, as Krystal Kyle has been pointing out, Charlie Kirk was an enemy of white supremacists. They bitterly hated Charlie Kirk because, and I can just speak to behind the scenes stuff in the conservative movement.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people on the left don't know this. Can you talk about that conflict a little bit?
Yeah, so Kyle actually probably even knows more about it than I do, but I can again speak to a little bit of the background in the conservative movement. There's this question of like whether gatekeeping is appropriate. That's been really salient since Trump came to power, especially. But like William F. Buckley is known for like kicking out the Birchers of the movement. And there's this growing debate about whether anyone should even be doing that. And Charlie Kirk was firmly on the side of kick the Birchers out, basically the Birchers in 2018 parlance being the Groypers. And so Fuentes, if you followed his rise, was basically playing off of Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk, trying to exorcise him from the conservative movement. And that's where Fuentes became sort of notorious. And Kirk has been like enemy number one next to Ben Shapiro of the subsect of, disillusioned, angry, openly disillusioned and angry young white dudes. So I don't know what this guy is. I'm just saying statistically, he's from a pretty conservative area of the country, knew his way around the gun. He's young and he's a white male. It's statistically possible that what we're seeing is actually from a radical right-wing person. I don't know. Could be. I understand why people jump to radical left, of course. I completely get it. And it's the same reason that I completely get listen, if a close friend of mine was gunned down like that in broad daylight on a college campus, and I had to watch the blood pour out of their neck and their family was there, their friend, I would be saying what Clay Higgins was saying. I would. I would take it back, within 48 hours, hopefully, but I would. And so I just don't know that that's where this is going to go, because we're already seeing calls for something that's more coordinated and organized, like what Chris Rufo suggested. It could be a Hoover style. He's actually invoked J. Edgar Hoover, a Hoover style crackdown on left-wing groups. And that's something different.
And Rubio is already saying that they're going to vet social media accounts of anyone applying for a visa for any sort of celebration of Charlie Kirk's murder, or any sort of anything they found inappropriate about, comments and sentiments regarding Charlie Kirk's murder. The apparatus is already set up. It's not like they haven't already been, working to crush dissent, especially as it comes to pro-Palestine sentiment. That's been basically the wedge the cudgel they've used most consistently to crush dissent. Also worth noting, just as a sidebar, bizarrely, Benjamin Netanyahu decided he needed to get involved in this and jump on Fox News to blame Muslim terrorists effectively for this. Again, having no idea, I don't, we don't know this guy's ideological leanings. He doesn't particularly look like a jihadist to me, just coming speculative here. You never know, but I don't think that one particularly matched up. But
Netanyahu said this morning, did you see that?
What did he say?
Netanyahu went on Fox this morning and said that this appeared to be a combination of ultra progressives and radical Islamists, and they got Charlie Kirk. So Netanyahu's theory here, yeah, not panning out so far.
Not panning out too much, but he'll never miss a chance to stoke Islamophobia for his own ends and insert himself into our politics at the most sensitive moment possible. But no, I mean, the apparatus is already there. We know what Trump's MO is. I mean, I think we already know what direction and it doesn't. And here's the other thing is like, truth and reality mean nothing to him. Even if this guy ends up, being a groyper and being a big Nick Fuentes fan and hating Charlie Kirk because, and this is the other part, is there's a electoral partisan divide here. Fuentes critiques Trump from the right, and Kirk is, big Trump ally. I mean, Kirk was basically like a Trump propagandist, right? That's what he was there to do, to make sure people voted and supported President Trump. Fuentes is critiquing Trump from the right. So anyway, even if this ends up to be like dyed-in-the-wool groyper watching Nick Fuentes every day, and again, we have no idea, but even if that's the case, like Trump will just make up some other shit. Like he will invent his own reality. It doesn't matter because he'll use it for his own ends. Now, if it is pretty clear-cut case where it doesn't ideologically match a left-wing profile, I think the public will be less receptive to those delusions from Trump. Like it will give them less power, but I think he'll, no matter what comes out about this individual, he'll use it to his ends because he always does.
So the Tucker Carlson's newsletter right now is saying something kind of interesting. It's really vague, but he says, Tucker doesn't obviously write it directly, but I think has it's run by him, and there's a little section in it. It just came out before 9 a.m. and it's labeled commentary. A sign of true character. The right was in turmoil and Charlie Kirk faced a decision. Which side should he take? His first option would have been the easy way out. Charlie easily could have played it safe and joined the GOP neocons, donors, and special interests pushing with all their might for a war with Iran. Such a move would have greatly pleased the powerful, yielded an enormous fortune, and aligned himself with forces able to support his career and business no matter what. The problem, of course, was that doing so would have been an abandonment of his values. As the American with perhaps the single most knowledge of what young voters desire, Charlie knew risking another Middle East war would not serve our country, so he visited the Oval Office to tell the president just that. He didn't scream, he wasn't disrespectful, he calmly made his case. So Tucker seems to be suggesting here that Charlie Kirk went to the Oval Office to lobby against.
Is that news? Has that been reported before?
I don't know. I don't think it has.
That.
I hadn't seen it before. But he seems to be suggesting that Charlie Kirk went to the Oval Office to lobby against that Iran strike or a broader conflict. He was
definitely publicly against it, but that's interesting that he used the access and the leverage and the networks that he has to directly push.
And Kirk is close to Vance, who we've learned from some reporting was very hesitant behind the scenes. He was very close to Donald Trump Jr., who's since referred to him as like a little brother. And so those divides that were happening behind the scenes are pretty interesting, actually, in retrospect.
Yeah. Well, he was very much, and you could see it playing out. I mean, we even covered it. Saagar and I covered it some on Breaking Points. I don't think Charlie loved our coverage of it always, but we covered that he was, he is caught between the administration's position, which he wants to support on Israel, and where his young fans increasingly were. And you could see the tension in how he was trying to navigate that. It was an impossible position to hold ultimately if you're trying both to keep your young admirers on board and you're trying to, support the president who you fully and completely support. And so he did this, this focus group with young voters, and that was a way for him to be kind of removed from it, but let them say their piece. Even him having Saagar on his show was, an attempt for him to, okay, well, let's hear this other perspective. I'm going to kind of like absent myself from the conversation, but let me hear this other perspective. So the divide between older Republicans and the administration and younger Republicans was kind of playing out in real time with Charlie Kirk. And you could see that it was a very difficult topic for him to navigate effectively.
Yeah, on the most contentious possible issue that you could pick, basically, on the right. So after he had Saagar on, you know, we had a lot of differences with Charlie Kirk over the years. And after he had Saagar on, I was going to send him a note. I never did it. But just saying, I thought that was because, again, like there's the public and then there's what happens behind the scenes, and he's in charge of a massive nonprofit apparatus. And, you know, that comes with just an enormous amount. If you want to be like a podcaster, that comes with just an enormous amount of donor pressure, of personal pressure, of friendships and relationships. And so people shouldn't underestimate what that took for him to even have Saagar on to have that conversation, because you guys know this as well as anyone, because it's you. I mean, you're constantly being called the worst possible names by some of the people that are, you know, involved with Charlie's nonprofit apparatus. Not that he agreed with it, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, and to put a finer point on that, even you know, having an organization like that means that you have I don't know how many people work for TPUSA, but at least dozens.
Yeah.
Like probably many dozens, not counting all of the chapters around the country. But for all of the people that work for you, if your organization goes under because you take a position that runs up against your donors, now all of those people, and some of those people are going through cancer. Some of those people just had a kid and are on paternity leave or maternity leave, and now they no longer have health insurance. Like it creates all of these, like you said, all of these different cross pressures on you that a purely just independent podcaster, you know, who's just, you know, who has, you know, a bunch of different revenue streams doesn't have to worry about. And so, yeah, to have Tucker Carlson, to have Dave Smith, to have Saagar, to have these people, you know, able to present their viewpoints, to go on Megyn Kelly and talk so openly about his frustrations with things, you know, took actual courage, because it comes with real costs that he's going to have to bear. On the point about Fuentes and the Groypers and his fight with them, I can see why he is such an obstacle to them, because, you know, he has this powerful network, knows, you know, knows every senator that he wants to know, every House member that he wants to know, directly in communication with the president and the vice president. And so to have him advocating for the exclusion of this entire, you know, faction is a huge threat to them. What do you think is the result when it comes to that particular fight of his assassination?
Well, you know, that's a really good question. Obviously, it depends hugely on whether or not we learned this had something to do with the topic we're discussing now. But either way, this was perhaps the most significant voice with younger conservatives that would, in a Buckley-like sense, steer the sort of consensus. And that's I actually, Ryan, not until you mentioned that had I thought about it in that sense, that Kirk had this Buckley-like sway over the future of the conservative movement, and appropriately not in a print magazine, but in a podcast format and on social media.
Where do people like, so, you know, as you know, I'm a student of like the Bannon podcast.
Yes.
And, you know, so, and he was often on that podcast. And so is Jack Posobiec and, you know, some of these other folks. My sense would be that Bannon and the Posobiec types are much more of a big tent, let the white nationalists in, and they'll be part of our durable long-term coalition. Whereas, you know, which is the opposite of what Kirk felt. And so to have Kirk in that mix with them is powerful in a way, because like they had to have him in, because he had the, because so am I wrong? Like, are they, where would they fall down on that question?
Well, yeah, and you know, Kirk wasn't like, I think one of the things people had increasingly have against Buckley is that he was performative about his gatekeeping. And I actually think that's the real divide between the Cold War gatekeepers, neoconservative gatekeepers, and like a Charlie Kirk, is that he learned not to be performative about it, probably over the last decade. That is actually less constructive to be sort of like flamboyantly, constantly tending the garden of acceptable opinion, and sort of be scoring points for yourself by hitting out at some groypers or whatever. Bannon, on the other hand, is really obsessed with this idea of a multiracial working class coalition. I think one of Fuentes's parents I think his dad is half Mexican, so it's the groypers aren't easy to just peg in one direction
not like
or the
old
other.
Birchers. They're
it's
not
a little
your grandfather's
different.
Birchers.
It's a little different, yeah. And so I don't know. I mean, it's just it's so. This is a really good question. I have to think about it more because it's complicated. Who's allowed in and who's not. But you're right. I mean, I think Charlie, having worked in the conservative youth movement, he has this sense of like duty and responsibility to like steer the ship of younger conservatives in a good direction. And people may look back and disagree with how he did that. But I'm just saying the fact is a lot of the donors and people put that on his shoulders. He was eager to take it on his shoulders, and he saw himself as somebody who was channeling the next generation of conservatism in a constructive direction. Now, he was happy for people to have debates within like the reasonable boundaries like he had with Dave Smith and Josh Hammer at his conference recently, but he definitely felt like he had a duty to, in a way that Bannon or Posobiec don't, because they're not the head of that type of ship of young people.
Let me ask you guys this, and again, we don't know the ideological leanings of this person. We don't know if they could be politically all over the blue. We don't know. But let me ask you guys this question: do you think I'm right that even if it is like a clear-cut case of like some white nationalist or groyper type or whatever that this guy turns out to be, that Trump will just pretend that it's otherwise or use this anyway to his ends?
I'm curious about him saying yesterday he had some sense of the motive before this that tells me that maybe they think, or they thought they had reason to believe that there's some, I don't know. I like, what is going on?
Were they going off the supposed trans Antifa bullets? I mean, we didn't spend enough time on that because it's so disgusting to me that the Wall Street Journal ran with that. And apparently it turned out there were like some arrows like potentially already printed on the bullets, because there are little like markings on there that they were like, these arrows, I think that must mean he's pro-trans, which was completely invented. And, all kinds of lay people, when this news came out of like markings on the bullets indicating transgender ideology, people were like, what would that even be? But apparently no one at the Wall Street Journal that reprinted this thought for 2 seconds to ask that question.
Or they reported, well, here's also what's interesting is that they reported, so Steven Crowder got it first, and the Journal was probably rushing because of Steven Crowder, which is already just like, what the hell? But they reported that ATF was taking these markings seriously. And the Journal probably failed to contextualize how thin the like evidence was, that was something to take seriously. But what it says to me is that somebody at ATF was taking it very, very seriously. And so because of that, okay, we've got a press conference coming in.
No, I mean, real quick to Chris' point, like Trump said, I don't care. Trump is telling you.
he already told you.
Trump already answered your question.
Yeah, I think that's probably correct.
It's like, I don't care who did this.
Yeah, the problem, sure, we got radicals on the right, but they're doing it for the right reasons. I mean, that's what, that's the whole justification for January 6th. We already know he pardoned a bunch of, violent J6 rioters. All right, here's the presser. I'm not hearing. Are you guys hearing it?
Messages
there we go.
Okay. Tyler, stating a need to retrieve
Governor,
a
Republican
rifle
Spencer
from
Cox.
a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush. Messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact, Tyler, also mentioned that he had changed outfits. I know there's been speculation as well as to the the writing on those casings,
Here we go.
those bullet casings, and I believe we have that as well. And I'll share that with you now. So the area north of Campus Drive Road where the suspect crossed over, you saw some of that in the video that we released last night, consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices, bulges, capital OWO, what's this, question mark." Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, exclamation point, catch, exclamation point." Up arrow symbol, right arrow, and symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow." And a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." We are indebted to law enforcement across the state who's worked seamlessly together, local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and our federal partners with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We're grateful for everyone who worked together in such a short amount of time to find this person and to bring justice. I want to thank the public who has been so engaged, reviewing videos, helping us with sending in tips, and helping us get to this point. I want to thank the family members of Tyler Robinson who did the right thing in this case and were able to bring him into to law enforcement as well. I especially want to thank the family of Charlie Kirk, Erica, Charlie's parents, his children. I want us to be thinking of them as we bring justice in this case. They will be involved in that justice. We will be working very closely with them as we move through this process as well. This is a very sad day for our country, a terrible day for the state of Utah, but I'm grateful that at this moment we have an opportunity to bring closure to this very dark chapter in our nation's history. With that, I will now turn the microphone over to the director of the FBI, Kash Patel.
Those bullet markings are hard to
Thank you, Governor. This is what happens when you let good cops be cops. The FBI and our partners are proud to stand here today together to bring justice to the family of Charlie Kirk and honor his memory. I want to express my deep gratitude to President Trump, the Vice President, and the entire White House who have been so incredibly supportive with both resources and just personally to the FBI as a team. They had our backs the entire way, and I just want to express my gratitude for giving us the resources we need to operate in this space to bring this sort of justice at this sort of speed. In 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie. Governor Cox, our partnership has been absolutely incredible these last few days. Our partnership will endure. Your state and local partners, your sheriffs, your DPS community has been unbelievably impressive in the hardest of times. And a case like this cannot be solved, cannot be brought without partnering with your state and local authorities. The FBI has a certain role to play. We will play that role, and we will lead after the federal government. Governor Cox, we are so grateful for your state partnership that led out on this investigation. A little bit of the timeline. Charlie was shot at 12:23 p.m. on Wednesday. The first FBI agents arrived on scene in 16 minutes with chiefs of police at 12:39 and secured the scene.
This is CYA to try to convince people they did a good job.
We utilize these assets to transport personnel, specialty technicians, hostage rescue teams. We also utilize these assets to go back and forth from the East Coast and here in Utah to transport forensic evidence and other evidence that will be analyzed and is being analyzed at our FBI laboratories in Quantico and other laboratories, including the ATF. At my direction, the FBI released the first set of FBI photos of the suspect at 10 a.m. local time on 9/11. Then, shortly thereafter, the FBI reward of $100,000 was released at 10:45 a.m. local. Myself and Deputy Director Bongino arrived on the scene at approximately 5:30 p.m. on 9/11. The governor led a press conference last night at approximately 8 p.m., where at my direction, the FBI released a never-before-seen video of the suspect. We also released new images to the public of the suspect. And just last night, the suspect was taken into custody at 10 p.m. local time. In less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah and Governor Cox, the suspect was apprehended in a historic time period. And I want to highlight what Governor Cox said. This would not have been possible without you, the media, and you, the public. That's why we went so public, so fast.
The suspect was on the loose for more than 24
hours. To that transparency. The crime scene, just a little bit there. It is a large crime scene.
Historic.
State and local authorities, along with federal authorities, processed that crime scene quickly. And I even had the ability to walk through that crime scene and walk through the steps the suspect took to learn more about what was needed and what resources we needed to prepare to create a full picture for the FBI and leadership back in Washington. Furthermore, thankfully to state and local partners, forensic evidence has been seized and continues to be garnered. Forensic evidence has already been evaluated at FBI laboratories in Quantico and state and local authorities here. We will continue to process evidence as we see it, as we collect it. And
we can probably get out of this. It doesn't seem like we're going to get any more news, right?
Last night we had a total of approximately 7,000
that could still be another 10 minutes.
Let's go through with a case.
Yeah, if they go to
so
questions,
let's go through the
Max,
casings.
let's go back in.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
let's go.
So you have them all there, Ryan?
Yeah, I got them here. In order. The first one they said was notices bulges OWO. What's this?
What does that mean?
Which is some furry bullshit.
What?
It's.
Yeah.
I mean, people can just Google this provocative internet meme associated with furry fandom with strong sexual connotations.
Notices bulges. Okay, all right. I'll look it up so you don't have to describe it to me.
Then hey fascists catch, which seems pretty clear what that is. And then
it says it says the notices bulge thing, it parodies furries and online role play subcultures. Is from Know Your Meme. Yeah. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Oh Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao. So Bella Ciao is an Italian anti-fascist song. So that is the thing that plus hey fascist catch is him signaling. That's where they would have gotten the Antifa stuff from this. And then if you read this, you are gay, LMAO. That gives Groyper troll.
Which is sort of, by the way, similar to what we saw in Minneapolis, where you had troll language.
True.
And this is just so, I mean, it just makes your stomach sink because...
So you have two troll languages and then two Antifa stuff.
Right.
So is the Antifa stuff there to like convince people that he's Antifa? We're going to find out more about this guy, but it could be that he's an actual Antifa guy, who grew up in this household with this... his dad in the sheriff's department and kind of rebelled against his dad. That's
not an uncommon story. Yeah,
happens. Could also be that this is a Groyper troll, who's just, and that we have a troll assassination.
Who was trying to say
troll
Charlie
assassin
was gay or something. Yeah,
it can also be. Did you guys look into this online cult that people were theorizing the Minnesota shooter was part of, because they had all kinds of symbology that was all over the map too, and I can't remember the name of these sort of linked neo-Nazi death cults, basically online radicalized death cults, where some of the MO is gaining notoriety and outdoing each other in your acts of terror and murder that you commit. And there are, a number of instances where the killers appeared to be linked to this, basically online death cult. And that's another possibility. Like, clearly this person was very online. Like, we can say that for sure. With the language, the use of memes,
what looked like a gaming keyboard in the picture that you showed.
in the picture. Yeah. I mean, just, and also just, that's the life of a 22-year-old man. Oftentimes in this day and age, not to sound like I'm a million years old, but it's true.
No, really.
So person was clearly very online, and there's certainly enough, like just the fact that there's any anti-fascist stuff in there is going to be enough for Trump and co to say this is
that's a good point.
100% on the left, it's radical Marxist, blah, blah, blah. So that's certainly what they'll be going with, whether that is fully the case or not. I think it still remains to be seen because the indications are kind of all over the place. Like if you're reading this, you're gay, LMAO, I don't know, guys.
Yeah, it's unclear right now which direction this is going in, because to me, when I look back on the Minneapolis shooter, I don't think it's unfair for the right to say that whatever was going on ideologically on sex and gender clearly played into that. But also, it was troll language. And when, in that case, the shooter died, so it's almost impossible to decipher the troll language from a mentally ill person and know which direction or the other that it was going in. This person is alive. This person is alive. And actually, as we pulled out of the presser, I just saw this update from the New York Times. Authorities in this news conference have described extensive evidence that they say ties the suspect in custody of the shooting of Charlie Kirk, including statements to relatives suggesting that he committed the crime, social media messages, and physical evidence. So I would say, at least in this case, the odds of us getting a much more complete picture of where this person was coming from, and this is a good thing, by the way, just exploded, because otherwise you get into ink blot test territory where you can kind of latch on to one part of the picture or another part of the picture, and it's more easily used as a football. So if we can get more clarity in this case, I think that is like a huge blessing, but we'll see.
Well, the other thing is just, even if, let's say that he had been killed or killed himself, or, the cops had killed him or he'd killed himself or whatever, then the conspiracies would also run wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that they have him, that he's alive, that he can speak for himself. Not that it's going to put all conspiracy theories to bed, but it will put, it will make it more difficult for those to gain, I think, widespread public acceptance and traction. And I think it matters a lot that they have this guy. Listen, I've already talked about how I think Trump is like the worst person possible to be our president at a moment such as this. Part of why, obviously, I opposed him into the election. Part of why I was very deeply concerned about what a second Trump administration would mean and would do for this country and for the world at large. But, I think, like, just the fact of having a suspect who, at this point at least, very much looks like this is the guy, at least then, that it helps relieve some of the mystique and some of the theories and potentially some of the follow on inspiration, because you're going to see him not go out in a blaze of glory, but be humiliated in a prison jumpsuit and brought pretty low. So I think those,
or you get,
I think those things matter.
I think I hope that that's true. I think that's likely true. On the other hand, it does it does worry me that you get into, and it's too early even to be speculating too much, but you end up with Charles Manson cult around someone. I don't mean like a literal cult, but like a cult following where people are obsessed and get fixated on someone in prison for a just cause. Or like even Mangione, you see some of this after he said he was innocent. Which means you could really be misdirecting people in different ways. Hopefully that doesn't happen here, but says I had nothing to do with this. I'm just to quote Lee Harvey Oswald, I'm just a patsy. So I guess there's still always potential that things could go in a bad direction. But yeah, I agree, Krystal. I think this is likely a very good sign.
Yeah. Well, and he's not as good looking as Mangione, so it'll be less inspirational for people. Tell me I'm wrong, Em.
I don't see any Hawaiian. I don't see any Hawaiian gear yet. Otherwise, I think you'd see a lot of people calling him a boogaloo dude.
Oh, well, that
I
was
forgot
another
about
thing.
those
I mean, that
guys.
movement basically collapsed too. Yeah, that was around. That was like a Proud Boy adjacent, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
kind of wacky and cultish and yeah, and extremely online, like trolly, very trolly,
Yep.
and believed in like random violence and accelerationism and
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the other
and
thing,
massive like meme, hyper meme focused.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway,
It's like if
I mean,
Lenin was
God only
memeing,
knows.
Ryan.
God only knows what weird online subcultures exist that relatively normal people have no idea about. Well, be careful, parents, what your kids are consuming on the internet. I'll just say that. I mean, the other part to say about the press conference is Kash Patel has been, has been ridiculous during this whole thing, right? Tweeting out, "Oh, we've got a subject in custody," and then having hours later be like, "Well, turns out that guy was innocent. Sorry. Oops, we're still looking." They delayed that press conference yesterday. Was supposed to be in the afternoon, and reportedly, it ended up not happening till like 9:30 at night. Reportedly because they were waiting for Kash and maybe Bongino as well to get into town. And then they just, stood there like idiots during the press. Like they didn't actually speak or participate at all. So you delayed this press conference. They claimed it was because of rapid developments, which made everybody think, oh, they must be on the trail. That was not the case at that point. Just so that he could be there for the photo op. So clearly he was trying to project a lot of authority here in this particular press conference and a lot of command and using a lot of very Trumpian language about how historic the manhunt was. And that's what happens when you let good cops be cops was one of the things that he said to try to cover the fact that he did not come across as a strong leader here. And there was also reporting about, listen, we know that a bunch of FBI agents have been pulled off of their jobs to assist ICE. We know some of them have been like roaming the streets in DC. We know that the head of the Salt Lake City FBI office was fired. We're not really sure why. In recent weeks as well. So a lot of CYA in this press conference from Kash Patel as well.
Well, again, what we're learning just minute by minute here is the suspect. I find this very disturbing, and I think it should continue to disturb people, whether or not we can, rightfully celebrate that the pictures were put out there and enough that someone came forward. That's all good, and I hope justice is served. This is a stone cold assassin who was able to escape a densely packed event on a college campus and stay at large for over 24 hours. So God knows what could have happened in that time period. Thankfully, it doesn't look like anyone else was hurt. It doesn't look like that was the case. It doesn't look like more damage was done in the 24 hours. But if you have a stone cold assassin who murders a political speaker in broad daylight in a densely packed area, I have no stomach to celebrate their father walking them into, or their father turning them in more than 24 hours after that happened. I don't think that, at least as of right now, reflects good police work at all. I actually think that picture of him from surveillance cameras probably could have been released. I don't want to Monday morning quarterback it, but it does seem to me that could have been released within 3 hours of the event happening rather than 24. So you have this mass panic, you have misinformation being leaked to the press in the 24 hours because there was a killer on the loose, presumably in Utah. So I think, it's too early to say any of that definitively, because we don't know what was happening behind the scenes, but I think it's a very high possibility that this was actually a not great, a less than adequate investigation and law enforcement response.
Not to mention the lack of prevention when we know that this guy had been spotted on the roof multiple times prior to Charlie Kirk's arrival. And this tip was apparently, provided and nothing done. The law enforcement, so Charlie had his own security detail, and then there were apparently only 6 police officers there to secure the event. which, you know, I know like certainly the landscape for people doing public events of this sort going forward is going to be a very, you know, very, very different. I saw Ben Shapiro is apparently going to pick up the rest of this tour. This was supposed to be the first stop on this new Charlie Kirk college tour. So he's going to pick that up. But, you know, also we have to look at like, were there things that were missed leading up to the day that could have prevented this horrific series of events, you know, from this horrific murder to start with?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously I have a lot of thoughts on that because part of like I'm on the board of a group that does lectures for students and student chapters and all of that, and have done it myself. And I checked in with some of my friends in that space, and they made an interesting point, which is that our discourse has gotten so poisoned that it's now actually also difficult to do indoor events, because when you do an indoor event, trolls will like buy up all of the tickets. And so it's actually why you've seen a lot of conservative speakers start doing outdoor events, because it kind of makes it easier to be in front of the public. And when you're doing campus stuff, nobody has like the resources to screen the roofs like local police departments don't, which to me is insane post Butler, that, you know, people would do an outdoor event without screening the roof. But then we're also just talking about college campuses where kids should be free to have speakers in and yell at them and challenge them and scream at them or whatever. You shouldn't have to worry about a sniper on a roof. I mean, it's so insane that this is where we are, but you cannot be doing outdoor events anymore where you aren't clearing a roof that's 200 feet away. I mean, that is such a pathetic commentary on the country. I mean, that is just unbelievable on a college campus where kids are just interacting with a 31-year-old like pundit. It was completely insane.
Yeah. And
a student could have been hit.
There's going to be, as we learn more about this individual, there's, you know, a lot of room for commentary also about, you know, internet culture and what it's doing to everyone's brains, you know. Yeah, this appears to be a guy from a middle class family, you know. We don't know what the life was or what struggles might have existed or whatever, but you know, I actually thought, Emily, where you were going with your commentary when you say I don't have room for praise of, you know, a father bringing his son in 24 hours later, is I thought you were going to say I don't have room for praise of that father. Thank God he did the right thing in the end.
No.
But
yeah,
you raised a killer, and I do think that there's something to be said about, you know, about that as well.
So crazy. Yeah, and this is what's so crazy about the internet too, is that you have kids from seemingly normal backgrounds who are parented well sometimes, and again, I'm not making assumptions in this case, but who are parented well and don't need to be partying and doing drugs to get into the wrong crowd, because it's coming through the screen, and that screen is their portal into darkness. Whereas in the past there was more friction. You had to start, you know, getting involved in shady groups of friends or whatever it was, but now there's just way less friction to go down dark paths because it all comes from the little screen that you keep in your pocket, and that is horrifying. I can't imagine for parents how horrifying that is.
Yeah, it is pretty horrifying. As a parent, I can tell you it is pretty horrifying. Just why, you know, you definitely have to be aware of what your kids are doing with their time and who they're spending their time with. If they're, you know, they're on their devices a lot, you need to take note of what sort of content they're consuming.
Yeah, internet is real life.
Yes.
And people forget that. You know.
I mean, there's rampant speculation on the timeline right now, of course. Everybody, it's a Rorschach test. Everybody's seeing what they want to see in this guy and his profile and what he wrote on the bullets and whatever. So we'll let that speculation go on. But is there are there other stories you guys want to get to while we're waiting for any more news with regard to Tyler Robinson?
This is all I've been able to think about for the last couple of days, to be honest with you. And it's crazy because there's a ton of stuff going on. I mean, we had drones over this Polish skies. There's potential law enforcement going into Memphis. It's not as though this is a slow August news cycle as it was, you know, maybe a couple of weeks ago. This is a packed news cycle, and it just seems so hard to focus on anything else.
Emily, how do you think that this murder will change like influencer culture and public events and how people think about their what they're doing, how much they're available, what their security situation looks like? Like, what are you hearing from people on the conservative side on that?
I mean, I'm scheduled to be on Megyn Kelly's tour this fall, actually on a stop in San Antonio with Glenn. And you can imagine Glenn, I can't imagine the security that Glenn has to worry about constantly. So I mean, I haven't heard anything in that space. I don't know what's up. I assume everything is going as planned. But I also just am so, I don't know about you guys, like I'm so black-pilled that a lot of what, elite influencer, prominent, high-profile influencer culture says, it just seems like there's such a dark subculture of irony posting and all of that I'm glad. I liked how Dean Withers reacted. I thought that was extremely classy, and I thought his raw emotion was really powerful. And I think probably 80% of Gen Z watches Dean Withers, whether they're on the left or the right, and says that was that was the appropriate reaction. That's what this country should be about. Or Cenk, like that's exactly what this country should be about. But it doesn't, to some extent, this is the problem is with the other 20% or 10% or whoever it is who are not at all. I mean, they feel like they have no control or agency, and they don't give a fuck what, how Dean Withers or Cenk reacts or how anyone else reacts. It just doesn't matter to them because it's all cringe and everything is ironic. And there's a nihilism to it that, I mean, I think influencers are probably going to do some really great stuff over the next year and be great about civic debate and push each other in public and, try to have like really hard conversations. I think that's great. Do maybe more of what we do, which is left on right as often as possible. I think that's all great. But to me, I don't know that makes any difference whatsoever with the 20%, 10%, 5% of just utterly nihilistic people who are disillusioned with the political system.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm less hopeful that even will be the outcome. I mean, I guess for some influencers, but most of what I saw was, I mean, frankly, most of what I saw from the right, from Trump on down, was like, this is war. We want vengeance. Let's crack down on free speech. Let's destroy them. They want to kill us. This is war, etc. And so I didn't really see many people out there using it as a moment to say, hey, let's come together and, let's turn down the temperature and resolve our differences. So, and, again, you've got an arsonist in the White House. I just, Ryan, I know you were, one of the reasons we really wanted to have you on yesterday, and you were traveling, so you weren't able to, but, we were trying to think of historic parallels to this moment because, as awful as it is for someone to take a shot at the president, that's part of American history. There's always going to be people who want to kill president. Even the legislators, the Minnesota legislators, that legislator who was killed and the legislators that were targeted. It's like, okay, well, those are still political officials, like very unsettling. But part of what made this so shocking and really sort of solidified for me that we're living through this very different era, like it's not new, we're living through it, is the fact that he is this, he's an influencer, he's an activist. Obviously it hits really close to home, but what do you see in terms of historic parallels? Are there other periods of American life that we can look to as being even somewhat analogous here?
Yeah, and I watched you guys talk about it yesterday, and Saagar's right. So I had said, I couldn't think of anything other than the pre-Civil War period, which is very ominous because, that's a dark, like 15 years heading into what then becomes the Civil War. And he flagged the most famous example yesterday, which is this guy Elijah Lovejoy, who was, I believe, in Ohio, either Kentucky or Ohio, newspaper editor who was a hardcore abolitionist. And murdered by, pro-slavery forces. His cousin, or not cousin, I think it was his brother. Owen, people can Wikipedia all this, but his brother was Owen Lovejoy, who was a congressman, who was anti-slavery congressman, who was also, it turns out, an ally of then Whig politician Abraham Lincoln. And when Lincoln was running for president, it was really there was a lot of skepticism about him from the anti-slavery side. Was Lincoln really with us or not? And it was Owen Lovejoy who basically was Lincoln's kind of validator to the left, saying no, like, and no, he's one of us. He just can't really say it because he's trying to win a national election. And Owen Lovejoy got so much of his own credibility, not just from his own politics, but from the fact that he was the brother of this martyred anti-slavery editor, Elijah Lovejoy. And martyrs play a radicalizing role in all movements. Chris Hedges mentioned this yesterday on Twitter, that when movements, when somebody is martyred in a movement like Charlie Kirk just was, it sanctifies violence, no matter what that particular person felt about violence. In Kirk's case, he was, strongly for discourse. You can hate what he said, but he was about persuasion and argumentation. You can hate that he was for argumentation on behalf of something that you think is terrible, but he was not advocating for violence. But what happens with his martyrdom is that now people in the movement who call for discussion and debate will say, no, Charlie Kirk tried that, or Elijah Lovejoy tried that, and look what happened to him. He was killed by our evil enemies, and the only thing we can do is war. Like that's the only option that's left to us. And if you don't do that, you are betraying the legacy of our martyr.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard internally in those factional arguments to argue against that. Even if you can point to, and this, not that Charlie Kirk is MLK, but like MLK was very, all about nonviolence. But what a lot of people said afterwards is, well, look what it got him. It got him killed. The only path forward is to fight for him, and to fight violently for him.
Well, yeah, because I forget who said this, but it shows someone who's like trying to have a back and forth and trying to say like, let's debate, let's debate really rowdily, if that's an adverb, but let's do it. And that effort was ended with a bullet. So
right.
What
so
message?
People use that and say, well, don't do that anymore. Like it's not.
Think you're Gen Z. Charlie Kirk has been an ever-present fixture of your social media diet for 5 to 10 years, and that doesn't matter whether you're political or not. This kid was on South Park. This guy was on South Park because he was well known enough to be parodied on a pop culture platform like that. And you have for years been scrolling through this guy, yelling at the libs, debating on college campuses, all of that on a podcast. And suddenly the video that you scroll past is him engaged in that very same act, and it ending literally in a geyser of blood. The point that some people will take from that is, dialogue doesn't work. It doesn't work because you can end it with a bullet. And that's a horrifying takeaway that people might walk away with.
Yeah. Right.
Chris Hedges wrote a piece, Ryan, I don't know if you read it, that talked some about, the role of the martyr.
Yeah.
And I thought made some very salient points about the way that a martyr can be used in a movement to further radicalize. And this isn't speculative. Like, you can go and look on the timeline at the number of people who are saying, that's it, gloves are off now, we're waging war, they want to kill us. And the president of the United States, as we played earlier, saying, it'd be nice if we could solve it at the ballot box, but that's not really possible because we don't even have a ballot box. It's so rigged, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So, that's what's like when you add the sense of political existential stakes, which in some ways, the stakes of politics are high, right? I don't want to sugarcoat it. Like, there is a reality that the political stakes are high, in fact. And then you add to it this tinderbox of gun culture, untreated mental illness, mass inequality, increasing the economics. We haven't been covering the economic numbers this week, but they're not looking great. Things continue to trend higher inflation, higher unemployment, more jobless claims, etc. And and then you have these other existential fears over AI, over climate crisis, over migration. For some, see that as an existential existential type fear. And you're looking at a powder keg. That's the sense. And Ryan, do you think that I don't particularly enjoy the pre-Civil War comparison. That one is really scary.
Yeah.
I don't love the 70s comparison either, but I guess it's somewhat less scary. Like, do you see parallels with that time period as well?
Yes. More so than with pre-Civil War, because as you pointed out on the show yesterday, the slaver class and also the anti-slavery folks properly understood the fight over slavery as existential and fundamental to the soul of the country. What is that today? Like that doesn't exist. Like the two parties agree on like most things.
Brand, I don't know if you've ever read the biography of Barry Goldwater that Lee Edwards wrote. He was a historian.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually at the Heritage Foundation for a really long time, but he was Goldwater's comms director. He was at the March on Washington. He was involved in a lot of the conservative political activism and the rise of the Reagan Revolution. And my friend Chris Bedford and I talked to him in June of 2020 as DC was like in a state of rolling crisis, and asked him how it compared to 1968. And I've taken a lot of heat for reposting this just in the last 48 hours, whatever it is now. But he told us when we asked how it compared to 1968, I was kind of pushing him, I thought, to say no, it's not as bad. Don't be hysterical, whatever. And he said now it's worse than 1968 because some of those institutional points of consensus have frayed. Right. And that is a very, very different time to end. That is the Civil War parallels feel more accurate in a point like that.
Yeah.
So guys, people are sharing a clip, and now let me see if I can play it, of the governor talking about how family members believe that Robinson had become more political in recent years. So let me go ahead and see if I can share this clip and we can react to it on the other side. Here we go.
Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th. And in the conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed that roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact named Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device.
So the commentary there again is that spoke to a relative who had been with Tyler just recently. Tyler mentioned Charlie's coming into town, talked about why he hated him, and said he was full of hate. I can tell you what a lot of people on the right are saying online is they're tying it into, oh, he went to college and became radicalized. So, and radicalized against the right and, became this murderous Antifa guy. And so you can already see, obviously this administration already has been very aggressive against universities. The right has been this has been part of a political ideological project anyway. So I fully suspect that piece will be used further to go after
and maybe this is me just reaching for what I want to be true, but if filled with hate, recently becoming filled with hate, would they be using that in the context of becoming anti-fascist? I mean, I guess you hate fascism like that.
Well,
filled with hate
does it
feels.
mean?
I couldn't tell if he was saying that he was filled with hate,
Right.
Tyler, or whether
Right.
he was saying Charlie Kirk was filled with hate, and that's why you didn't like him.
Right.
It was a little bit unclear in what the governor was saying there, but people
And
are taking
does he
people are
say-
taking it to mean that Tyler was saying Kirk was filled with hate.
Does he say?
Right.
Did he say anything? And maybe we can find more of this clip. But did he say anything about what these messages were? He let the clip cut off where before he told like what the jokes were that he was telling and what the messages were.
I have not seen that, but we'll keep looking and seeing if they indicated what those Discord messages were, because that would certainly be relevant to know.
And this, we don't need to even continue finding ways to underscore this, but the fact that someone was posting messages on Discord, I think we've seen the furry reference so far. Discord, that's indicative of somebody who was deep in online culture.
Yeah, the radicalization seems less to do with whatever academic institution he was at, and more to do with whatever Discord server he was at.
It's crazy.
Also, the arrows, it looks like, and maybe people have some better clue into this, where they said the arrow down, right, or
up, side, up, right, down, down.
Is
Yeah,
it
this is from the
Hellfire
New York
too?
Times.
I mean, Helldivers too, or what?
That's what I saw too. It's from some video game meme.
The Times says the list of messages on the suspect's casing as described by Governor Cox include apparent references to online culture and gaming, quote, up arrow, right arrow, and 3 down arrow symbols, as described by Cox, may be a reference to a sequence of moves on a controller that release a bomb in the video game Helldivers.
Wow.
Another engraving, quote,
Griffin, I don't know if people
notices
can hear me on
bulges,
these.
OWO, what's this, is a phrase used for trolling in online roleplay communities.
Yeah. And it's a furry specific, I guess. I don't know. The internet was a mistake. I don't know, guys, what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Xi is onto something in China. Shut it down. I mean, the most 2025 thing you can imagine.
Total gamer troll.
Brain rot, gamer troll engravings on, bullets that are used to murder a prominent activist and online influencer. And with the videos being streamed into our feeds basically in real time so that we can all over and over again watch one of the goriest, most horrific things you can possibly imagine. Like what hell are we living through?
Yeah, seriously. Yep. It's hard to understand right now what this is going to do to Zoomers who have already seen so much. I mean, I think back, I'm slightly younger than you guys. You guys were like, your brains were fully formed when some of the like beheading videos were hitting Twitter in, circa like 2013. I forget when Foley was, but I saw that when I was like probably 16. And it's not normal for the human brain to experience that. It's not normal for the species to experience that, where you can zoom in, you can pause. It's posted so many times in the hours after Charlie was shot. It was, I probably saw it 15 different times on my feed. If you were trying to get the news on a mainstream website, it's not like this was in the bowels of, something somebody downloaded on like bear share and sent to their friends over email. Like, that's not what it was. It was on a mainstream website, and it sounds trite to us now, but I'm just thinking of somebody who was like probably 16 and saw a human being beheaded multiple times. Like, this is so much worse. I mean, they saw Brian Thompson, they saw all of that all over, and it's a level of exposure to violence that previously only would have existed in like war zones. But even then, you're experiencing something physically and in person, and the disconnected nature of watching a total stranger that you will never meet, you do not know, and then being incentivized to weigh in either with a great thought that's classy or with a horrible thought, because the algorithm that pushed that video to you is also demanding a response from you.
Right. That's right.
We are so absolutely fucking cooked. We're just cooked.
Yeah. I mean, what else can you say? Like, and that's before we even talk about the, you know, the images of a genocide that we've been seeing every single day, the horrific video of Irina, who was murdered on a, you know, public transit. And this, like, maybe I'm misremembering, but the beheading videos, like, you had to, like, actually, like, I never watched it. You had to, like, kind of intentionally. This was almost unavoidable.
I had a
Go ahead, Ryan.
No, we were breaking that in real time, and I remember I had it up, and then I put it in a different tab because I didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
And then as I'm going back to working later, I clicked on that tab, not knowing what it was, and there it was, and it's still in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, that image of Charlie, I don't think will ever be out of my mind, because it was, I mean, it was horrifying. And I just, you know, one thing that I can't quite fully describe or put my finger on, but like, think about, okay, this killer puts these brain rot memes, engraves them intentionally, like went out of his way to do this so that you and I and Ryan and the whole world could talk about it and decipher his internet memes that he put on there for lulz. And there's this sense of disconnect and unreality, where it's like, it's that nihilistic, nothing matters, you know, the more like outrageous thing you say, the more like disgusting and hateful thing you say, the more sort of notoriety you get. And this sense that other humans are quote unquote NPCs, right? They're not really real. I mean, there's just this, I don't know, this sense of sort of disconnect from your fellow human. And there are always going to be sociopathic type people out there who just naturally have that disconnect from humanity and are able to, you know, pull a trigger and blow someone to bits from, you know, 200 yards away and, you know, have no regrets about it or whatever.
Or a knife in the case of Irina, right? Like, that's
right.
To some extent.
That was very intimate murder. You know, that's very intimate to be that close and to murder someone in that way. But yeah, I have a feeling like this type of internet nihilism is converting many more people into basically like sociopaths with little sense of fellow common humanity.
Yep. And that's what I'm genuinely not trying to make this a partisan or anti-Trump comment. I'm saying this as somebody who's Charlie Kirk's age, 32. He was about to turn 32. When Donald Trump says what he said about elections, that is something you heard from the fringes when I was growing up, when we were growing up, and the fact that came out of the President of the United States' mouth after so many people in Gen Z just saw what they saw. I think genuinely, like boomers, people in Trump's demo, have no idea what type of rocket fuel that is for nihilism and violence and danger. And it horrifies me to think about that combination. It really, really does.
I mean, Ryan, some of the violent, Weather Underground and those type of movements, I mean, I feel like that comes from a similar place of like, the political system, like, failed us, and so this is the only thing that this is the only thing that could work. I mean, you can also see it in terms of like the parallels are not perfect, guys, here, so forgive me, but the Hamas Palestinian like violent resistance too. It's like, hey, we tried this thing, didn't work, so our only path forward is violence.
The difference between that kind of organized violence and this is that you could hate it, but it has, and you can disagree. Like, I think the Weathermen were reckless adventurists who, on and on. People don't care about my, Weather Underground critique, but like the point is, like, they had an idea, like they were going to spark a revolution, whatever. Like it had it had a 1, 2, 3.
There was a grand strategy.
I think it's an outrageous 1, 2, 3 and stupid and counterproductive and blah blah. But it was it was a 1, 2, 3.
Right.
Like, what is this? Like, this feels like trolling. It feels like taking someone's life in the most, with the flick of a wrist,
for personal catharsis.
For a personal catharsis, and just joking like you're on a Discord server. Like, to take someone's life with references to like video games,
furry memes,
and furry memes is so sacrilegious to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, keep that on Discord. Like,
and you want to feel blackpilled? The Weather Underground could actually organize a group of physical people to plan.
Right.
They
blew themselves up, but at least they were able to get more than one person in a room.
They were not. Yeah, they were. Right. And so that's a huge difference from lone wolf internet radicals or internet nihilists. Because think about it. He was not part of a literal underground community of dozens of people who are organizing in back rooms. This is somebody who was alone. When you are part of a radical revolutionary group, whether it was right or left, underground or whatever else, these are people who had, like, that was a sense of purpose and belonging in community. This is somebody who has and that's all, like everything that Ryan said, underscore, like, awful, horrible way to find community through violence like that. But this is somebody who's trying to find purpose in saying there is no purpose, and is trying to make that point. Oh my God. I mean, it's just so depressing to think about.
I think I have a clip here that's a little bit more of the family member stuff. If you want to roll back through this again, just so we can see how we.
Are you able to share it, Ryan?
Yeah. Let me do it here. I think
DMs.
This is it.
The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed that roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact name Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact Tyler also mentioned that he had changed outfits.
Wow.
I know there's been speculation as well as to the writing on those casings, those bullet casings, and I believe we have that as well.
Did we already do this?
And I will share that with you now.
Yeah, we already got the casings, but the So am I understanding right? This man murdered Charlie Kirk and then went on a Discord server to be like, talking about the gun and talking about changing his clothes and basically
telling
like bragging about
asking
it.
his roommate for help.
Is that what
quite
I'm
tell.
understanding here?
He's
That
doing that.
is-
He's doing that police talk, which makes it deliberately difficult to translate into English. But that does.
But
Yeah.
feel like,
that is wild. That is wild. You did this and you got away. You left your gun and you're like talking about the gun, talking about where you left it, talking about how you changed your clothes, bragging about this to your buddy on a Discord server. Like what?
And it took 24 plus hours. They did not until this person's dad turned them in. This was in a public place full of CCTV at a densely crowded event. And this person is bragging about it on a Discord server afterwards. And the FBI, more than 24 hours in, about 36 hours in, had nothing except for, by the grace of God, this person's father had the willpower to turn them in. So increasingly looking like, from my perspective right now, is increasingly looking like possible Antifa nihilism, but also horrific law enforcement response. I mean, just what the hell? It was crazy.
Yeah.
That's so dangerous. It's so dangerous.
Yeah, and then Kash Patel has the temerity to go out and brag about how historic and how incredible of a job they'd done. I mean, it's unbelievable.
I mean, the truth is, law enforcement doesn't have to be that great, if a picture gets out. Like,
right,
you're gonna get found. Like,
yeah, because
everybody is known by
almost
somebody.
all of the public, right, and almost all the public is going to be on your side, right? There's going to be very few that would actually be willing to, harbor the Charlie Kirk murderer or not turn them in,
Right. So unless he's, going, he'd have to wear a ski mask, and then people will be like, "What the hell are you doing wearing a ski mask?"
Right.
Maybe
well,
if this was during the pandemic, maybe he could have snuck in.
You could have gotten away with it, yeah. Or if you're posing as an ICE agent, you could pull that
That's
off.
true. Yeah, I'm an ICE agent on the roof. Yeah, actually.
Yeah. That would have been even more of a 2025 murder.
Yeah.
And then the other aspect of it, to add to the sort of dystopian unreality of the whole thing, is I know you guys saw this like influencer who was there, who was posting to TikTok, like follow me on TikTok and mugging for the camera, which again is like, even as you're living through this horror, you're still like somehow disconnected from it. Even as you're like in the real world, you're still disconnected from it. And after the fact, I know he like apologized, I'll be a better creator or whatever, but you're like disconnected from the very reality and the humanity that you are existing with and living through.
Because your reality is that your career is tied to the algorithm. And so this is like Marshall McLuhan, you are, as a human being, changed by the medium that is controlling your life. And these mediums are not changing us for the better. There's just clearly, we are being warped into our own thought processes, having dictation by the algorithm, because you start thinking in terms of the algorithm, and people need to be extremely careful about it. And we aren't, and the tech companies aren't. The tech companies, X included, Elon Musk is condemning all of this, but he owns a company that has one of the most major roles in poisoning us algorithmically. So it's just like, it reminds me of the video of that went viral in a totally different vein, of that young man who was saying he was working really hard and couldn't get ahead. That went mega viral like a month ago. And he was dead on in his description of the economy. It was accurate. It was poignant. And then you look at the bottom of the TikTok and it says things like #follow-me. And think about that. I mean, #follow-me, so like it had hashtags basically being like, I want to become an influencer, something to that extent. And it's just like, that is just I don't know that you could possibly be much more depressed about the state of the country.
Yeah, and I think it's an accelerant. Like, I don't think it starts with the social media. I think it's an accelerant, the internet culture, for a society that's already sick in any number of ways. But yeah, I don't know what to say about it. I mean, we can wrap up here pretty soon because I don't see, I don't know what else we're gonna get right now. But Ryan, you got any last thoughts you want to add in here?
No, I mean, the only for people like myself who don't want this to be like a leftist, the only hope is that he's trolling with his "Hey fascist" catch and that sort of stuff.
And the Bella Ciao.
And the Bella Ciao, that's some kind of a troll and a misdirection.
I mean, the old
Yeah, I think I hear Mac. What's Mac saying?
Oh no, that was actually it was you heard yourself through my microphone.
Oh,
because the
gotcha.
video just turned on.
So, these are just dark times.
Really.
And it's it's still hard to believe that Charlie Kirk is dead.
Yeah.
It
I was
is.
just thinking that.
It feels
It's
crazy. And I mean, that's the other aspect of this is, Emily, you brought up like the parasocial relationship that millions have with him and will experience this as if, someone who's genuinely close to them was killed.
I mean, it's so like, and that can go in really positive directions for some people. But again, I'm not worried about the people who are reacting healthily to this, because I know that there's a large group of people that aren't going to react healthily to this because they have no community. They have no friends, but they have a computer. And I'm just going to put this before we wrap. I just want to put this image that we've gotten in of Charlie's now widow, on the screen, because it is just, you just look at her face. And the video emerged of her exiting Air Force Two with Usha Vance and just gripping onto Usha Vance. Obviously, JD was very close friends with Charlie. Charlie helped get JD onto the ticket by lobbying behind the scenes with Don Jr. And so this is something that this administration, I mean, again, at the White House yesterday, those young Trump staffers, the level of doom that was ever present hanging in the air the entire day, and shock, it just, it's one way. I think, we're talking now about how people in the public are experiencing this, and that's right, because it's crazy, but just also think about how closely this is touching the way that, we talked about this earlier, the reactions from this administration. This is so personal, personal. So it's a really scary time.
Yeah. And Trump had no direct personal connection to Big Balls. This is someone he knew closely and, was looped in with the administration in any number of ways. So we'll see where we go from here. Anything else, guys?
No, I just hope you guys stay safe and
appreciate you guys. I'll say that. And we'll end on the good news. It's good news that this guy got caught. Good news that he's in custody. Good news that, they've got him. And I'm sure we're gonna learn a lot more here. And if there's anything that pops up big over the weekend, guys, one or the other of us will try to cover it. Otherwise, Saagar and I will be in studio for a normal show on Monday, and we will see you then.
Pull people out of nihilism, by the way. Sorry, I just want to say, because we have some very online people, and we're grateful for all of you. If you see someone going down a dark path, do what you can to pull them out of it. That's the best we can all do right now.
Yep.